Helo, noswaith dda, good evening, croeso I amser stori y Venture. Welcome to the Venture Story Time. So today is Dydd Gwener, Friday, the 10th of April 2020. And let's start off with On This Day. So, on this day, in 1858, after the original Big Ben, which you can hear bonging, hopefully, the bell that's in the Queen Elizabeth II Tower cracked during testing, and on this day it was recast into its current bell form at the Whitechapel Bell Foundry. So, what else happened today? In 1912, Harold Godfrey Lowe, who was actually from Eglwys Rhos in Conwy, set sail on the RMS Titanic, a famous ship that you may have heard of, from Southampton in England. He was the fifth officer, and he was actually portrayed by Ioan Gruffudd in the 1997 James Cameron blockbuster film. And you might remember him for this line. Is there anyone alive out there? Can you hear me? Very sad film I'll be watching on April 14th. And also on this day in 1970, Paul McCartney left the Beatles. In 1998, the Good Friday Agreement was signed. And last year, the Event Horizon Telescope project announced the first ever image of a black hole, the most mysterious objects out there in our universe. So that was this day. And of course, today is Good Friday. So for many Christians around the world, they will be celebrating Good Friday today, which means that Easter is just around the corner. So I hope you've all been enjoying the lovely weather today and have managed to get in your daily exercise. But it is Amser Story. So please let us know if you're watching. Let us know in the comments that you're here. And I hope that you enjoy the chapter tonight. So as we jump into the Demon Headmaster, let's have a quick recap of what's been going on. So, we've met Dinah Glass. She's a foster child who's gone to live with Mr. and Mrs. Hunter. Also living there are Harvey and Lloyd, and they all go to the same school. But this isn't an ordinary school. Everybody is really, really well behaved. They straighten their hats, they comb their hair before they go in, and there's 6 prefects, very strict prefects at this very well-behaved school. So last time, Dinah went to meet the headmaster for the first time, and she fell asleep for about 3 hours in his office. Very strange. She also had a prick in her finger that she didn't remember doing. She then went to the hall after lunch. Oh, by the way, the lunch was really strange because everybody was just sitting quietly eating their lunch. And then she was trying to trick the headmaster, who seemed to have hypnotised everybody else. But he realised that Dinah wasn't hypnotised and then came over and pricked her in the arm, and she winced and went, ah! And then he realised, and then he did hypnotise her. And that's where we left. Dinah was hypnotised. He pricked her in the arm, but she didn't feel it at all. So that's where we're up to. So let's jump into chapter 5, which is called Assembly. Keep out. So grab yourselves a nice drink, get yourselves comfy. And we'll begin. Harvey looked up from his pages of sums and stared out of the window, fidgeting. Oh, so Harvey and Lloyd and a couple of others are in a group that don't go into assembly for some reason. All around him, the others were working hard. Ian was writing steadily in his elegant, slopy script. Mandy was frowning over a difficult problem. And Ingrid was running her hands through her untidy hair and chewing the end of a pencil. Even Lloyd was not paying him any attention, but Harvey could not concentrate, because Dinah had made him think about assembly again. What did go on in the hall when they were all in there? Harvey, said Rose sharply, looking up from a book she was reading. Why aren't you working? So this group are watched by a prefect, and today that prefect is Rose. I'm just thinking for a moment. That was true enough, anyway. He waited until Rose was bent over her book again, and then prodded Lloyd. "What do you think they're doing?" he mouthed noiselessly, pointing towards the hall. Lloyd frowned at him and mouthed back, "Films, of course. Get on with your work." Harvey looked across the hall and frowned. The blackout curtains were certainly drawn as if for a film, but all round the edges of the curtains he could see thin streaks of light, and it was always like that. Every day. He often looked across while he was supposed to be working, and he had never seen the lights go out, not once. So they could not really be watching films. What were they doing? He wriggled in his chair with frustrated curiosity. "Harvey Hunter, will you sit still and get on?" Rose was really irritated now. Harvey could see that he would have to be careful or something nasty might happen. He was just about to go back to his sons when he suddenly had an idea. "But I can't concentrate, Rose," he said. I really need to go to the toilet." Rose looked even more annoyed. "You should learn not to be so disorganised." "Please, Rose." He knew he sounded stupid, but could not bear it any longer. He had to go and have a look in the hall. "Please, I can't wait till the end of school." She looked rattled for a moment, as the prefects always did when you asked them to do something unexpected. Then she nodded reluctantly. "Oh, all right, but be as quick as you can." As he jumped up, he saw the others looking at him. Mandy's gentle face was worried. She had guessed he was up to something. He slipped quickly out of the door before she could mouth a question at him, and ran along the corridor on tiptoe until he reached the hall doors. The double doors had glass panels at the top, with heavy curtains drawn across. By stretching up and peering, he could see through a narrow gap at one side, and he stood there looking. There was no screen on the stage, no projector, no sign at all of anyone getting ready to watch a film. Instead, everyone in the hall, teachers and children, was staring fixedly at the stage. On the stage stood the headmaster, stooped over like a giant vulture. Harvey saw with amazement that he'd taken off his dark glasses. "But I've never seen him like that," Harvey thought, "except on the first day I came here." He leaned further forward and pressed his nose against the glass in an effort to try and find out what was going on. The headmaster seemed to be reading aloud from a book that was held in his hands. As Harvey watched, he stopped, then glanced up and spoke a few words. Immediately, all the people in the hall started to chant in a regular monotone, as if they were repeating back from memory what he had just read. It must have been pages long, because the voices went on and on and on. But struggle as he might, Harvey could not make out more than a few words. He caught the words system a couple of times, and once a number, -26.9. But none of it made any sense. And still the voices went tirelessly on. Very strange. It was tempting to say, to try and find out more. It was tempting to stay and try and find out more, but just in time Harvey remembered that he would spoil his excuse if he did not get back quickly. He said he was going to the toilet. Gnawing his bottom lip, he hurried away along the corridor. He did not look back. If he had, he would have seen Jeff, that's one of the other prefects, slide out from behind a tall bookcase beyond the hall doors and stare after him with a gloating smile on his face. Oh no! One of the prefects has seen Harvey. But it never occurred to him to glance over his shoulder. He was too busy getting back to the classroom. As he let himself in, Rose scowled at him. "You were too long." "Sorry." He slid into his chair. Better write hard for a bit until she'd stopped watching him. He scratched away industriously, keeping an eye on her under his eyelids. When he was certain that she was deep in her book, he scrawled a message on a spare piece of paper and flicked it. They weren't watching films, they were listening to the headmaster. With great care, he flicked it onto Lloyd's desk. Lloyd gave him a disapproving frown, but when he'd read the note, he raised his eyebrows. And a few moments later, another note landed on Harvey's desk. "We'll ask Dinah when we get home." So let's fast forward to getting home and find out what was said. As they sat over his tea, Dinah was even quieter than usual. She gazed into her cup, watching the brown liquid swirl round and round. Mrs. Hunter had asked her 3 times whether she wanted another piece of cake. "Sorry," she looked up at last. "Thinking about school?" Mrs. Hunter smiled. "I was going to ask you if you'd had a nice day. What did you think of it?" "I think," Dinah said steadily, "that the headmaster is a marvellous man, and this is the best school I've ever been to." Harvey sniffed scornfully and looked at Lloyd. But Lloyd was watching Dinah. Her face had gone white, almost as if she were frightened by what she had said. The next instant she had lowered her eyes and begun to munch on the piece of cake. "Let's all go to the playroom," Lloyd said suddenly. "Come on, H. You coming, Dinah?" Dinah swallowed a mouthful of cake. "If you like," she said carefully. She followed them through and sat down as Lloyd closed the door. "Now," he said, suppose you tell us what you were all up to in the hall this afternoon." Dinah said mechanically, "We saw a film." Lloyd looked knowingly at Harvey. "Oh yeah? What was it about?" Dinah took a deep breath and began to talk as if she were reciting. "It was a film about ants. It was very interesting. We saw how they build their nests and look after their eggs and how their queen lives." She stopped abruptly. "What else was it about?" Lloyd said. "I don't remember." "Did the headmaster talk to you about it afterwards?" "I don't remember," Dinah replied. "Rubber ravioli," Lloyd burst out. "Don't you remember anything? You're a proper dunce, aren't you?" Harvey giggled suddenly. "She'll never be on Eddie Hare's great school quiz." "Oh, shut up about stupid Eddie Hare," snapped Dinah. "What's all this about, anyway?" "Oh, nothing," Lloyd said airily. "We just wanted to know what happened, that's all. But if you're too thick to remember anything..." "I always remember things," Dinah said. "Always. I don't quite understand." For a moment she looked as if she were going to go on. Then her face snapped shut and she shook her head. "I've told you what I can. I can't tell you any more." "But I can tell you something," Harvey said. "Be quiet, you idiot." Lloyd gave him a shove. "No." Harvey looked obstinate. "It's not fair to ask her questions and then not tell her. Besides, I want to hear what she's got to say." He turned back to Dinah. "I sneaked out of the room and had a look through the hall door. I didn't see any sign of a film." Dinah stared at him and he nodded. "That's right, nothing. No screen or projector or anything. And I was watching from across the playground all the rest of the time, and the lights in the hall didn't go out once. So you can't have seen a film. You're lying." "What did you see?" Dinah said hesitantly. "I saw you all sitting looking at the headmaster on the stage. He read something long out of a book, and you all repeated it back. I don't know what it was, but you must know. You all said it from memory." Dinah frowned harder and shook her head. "I don't remember anything like that happening." "Huh!" Lloyd sat down and stretched his legs out. Well, what did happen then? I told you. We saw a film. It was a film about ants. She was talking in that steady, reciting voice again. It was very interesting. We saw how they build their nests and look after their eggs and how their queen lives. That's what you said before, Harvey bounced up. It's exactly what you said before. And that's not true. Lloyd banged his hand down on the table. So why do you keep saying it? I don't know. For a moment, Dinah looked bewildered. Then her face pinched. I don't want to talk about it. Why do you keep going on about it? Because it's ridiculous, Lloyd snapped. You heard what Harvey said. Dinah was beginning to look annoyed. A faint pink flush ran along her cheekbones, and the tip of her nose turned white. You hadn't got any business to be seeing anything, she said crossly. What do you think you were doing, snooping around like that? I thought there was something peculiar going on, Harvey said. And I was right, wasn't I? You don't know anything about it, Dinah muttered. And if you go on nosing, you'll get into trouble. I told you not to tell her anything, H, Lloyd burst out. Bright green baked beans. Suppose she goes off and tells the headmaster what you said. Harvey turned pale. But she wouldn't do that, would you, Dee? Of course not, Dinah started. Then she stopped and looked craftily at Lloyd. At least I might be tempted to if you don't leave me alone. Don't you dare. Lloyd jumped to his feet. Harvey hasn't done anything wrong. Oh no, said Dinah triumphantly. Then why is he looking so scared? She was right. Harvey's round face had crumpled with fright, and he was twitching nervously at the edge of his jumper. He was silly, that's all, Lloyd said. I've told him 100 times not to get involved with things, but he didn't do anything wrong. Can't he speak for himself? Dinah said scornfully. Look at him. He's shaking like a jelly. He's nothing but a baby. Running around school and peering in windows. It's so childish. Ha! That's all you know. Lloyd had gone red in the face. It was a silly thing to do, but it was very brave. Only I don't suppose you would understand. Why not? Suddenly Dinah was very quiet. She stopped looking at Lloyd and turned to Harvey. Why don't you explain to me? I know he doesn't like me, she waved a hand towards Lloyd, but you've been really quite nice. And I don't understand. Why was it so brave of you to look in at the hall? Don't tell her a thing, Lloyd said sharply. Go on, Dinah said. Tell me, Harvey, what's going on in that school? Why is everyone so well behaved? And what do you think happens in assembly? I don't know, Harvey stuttered, but suddenly Lloyd darted at Dinah, pushing her through the door and into the hall, and with one gigantic shove, slamming the door shut. He leaned against it and glared at Harvey. Haven't you got any sense at all, H? Can't you get it into your thick head that she's one of them? If you tell her anything at all, she'll probably go off and repeat it to the headmaster, and then you'll get me and all the others into trouble as well. Harvey went even paler. I don't think she would, not really. Would she? I don't know, Lloyd said grimly. We'll just have to wait and see, won't we? Harvey chewed nervously at the end of his finger. From outside in the hall came the sound of voices. Mr. Hunter had come in, and he was saying to Dinah, Oh, how did you get on at school then? What did you think of it? Dinah's mechanical voice came clearly through the door. I think the headmaster is a marvellous man, and it's the best school I've ever been to. Heard that before, haven't we? Well, that's chapter 5. What is going on at this school? Everybody's so well behaved. Something very mysterious is going on. Speaking of mysterious going on, there's something mysterious going on with Facebook. So I hope this video has worked. but I can't see anybody. So if you've been watching, please let us know in the comments. I will give a shout out to you tomorrow. Speaking of which, I have to shout out to Ellie. Stuart P. Reed commented with just the word Ellie. So shout out to Ellie, whoever you are. I think I know who you are. So yes, all that leaves me to say is diolch am wylio. Thank you for watching. Breuddwyddion dda, sweet dreams, nos da, good night, and hopefully I will see you all soon. Ta-ta rwan.